Hello, dear friends. Welcome to day 3 of Being Boundless. Namaskar. Today, we will take a sidestep to look at what I call the neural symmetry of love, specifically a kind of love that we might call compassion, because compassion is intimately linked to forgiveness. And together, we're going to look at the brain functions and how the brain works, and what areas of the brain are activated when we are developing power, forgiveness, and compassion in our hearts. Now, just a few words on why and how compassion and forgiveness are connected. Compassion is the desire or the wish to free oneself and others from suffering. Having seen how suffering afflicts us, and therefore being unable to bear that, having that wish, the strong wish, to see the alleviation of that anguish and suffering. Now, when we have this genuine wish and desire, this compassion, to relieve oneself or others from suffering, then it's much easier for us to cultivate forgiveness. Why? Because forgiveness is powerfully effective in freeing ourselves from the suffering we cause ourselves through holding on to inner hurts and pains. And when we are able to forgive ourselves, having had this sense of compassion for ourselves, then we are also, in the same way, far able to forgive others through having compassion for others. So we can see the intimate link of compassion and forgiveness. Now, across spiritual traditions, both compassion and forgiveness have been highly valued and advocated. And there are practices to nurture these qualities in our beings. And in recent times, science seems to be backing that up. Science, especially brain science, neuroscience, showing that compassion and forgiveness is really very good for us, very healthy. And not just good for us individually, it is good for us socially, as a community. Now, I'd just like to mention a few studies just to illustrate my point. For example, scientific studies of forgiveness have shown correlation between increased mental health, especially reduced anxiety, reduced depression, reduced risk of heart disease, correlated with an increase in forgiveness. For example, from the University of Wisconsin, Dr. Bob Enright, a pioneer in the study of forgiveness, explained that toxic anger, long-held anger, causes mental and physical problems. When toxic anger is released, muscles relax, anxiety is reduced, energy increases, and the immune system is strengthened. Amazing. In another study by Yoichi Chida in the Journal of American College of Cardiology in 2009, it's a meta-analysis where he found that anger and hostility are linked to a higher risk of heart disease. Imagine that. And poorer outcomes for those with heart disease. Anger and hostility linked to higher risk of heart disease and poorer outcomes for those who already have heart disease. Another study by Toussaint and his colleagues in the Journal of Health Psychology in 2016 showed that people with accumulated lifetime stress, very high accumulated lifetime stress, were found to have worse mental health outcomes. But among those with high forgiveness scores, high lifetime stress did not seem to predict poor mental health. Interesting. In other words, for people who practice and experience forgiveness, the link between high lifetime stress and poor mental health simply not there. And even if there were stressful events in their lives, their mental health remained good. Power of forgiveness. In another study in Neuroscience and Behavioral Reviews in 2020, Fury and his colleagues showed that there were three brain areas linked to forgiveness. First, what we call the lateral prefrontal cortex, which is linked to cognitive control. Second, the temporal parietal junction, which is linked to perspective taking. And third, the ventral medial prefrontal cortex, linked to social valuation. So these three areas have been linked to aspects of cognitive function like cognitive control, perspective taking, social valuation, all of which are linked to forgiveness. So there is quite a bit of science behind this now. So in summary, we find that in social psychology, neuroscience, cardiology, there is evidence to show that forgiveness is good for mental and physical health. Of course, studies are ongoing, and science is an ever evolving, ongoing endeavor to seek truth, find evidence, and for sure, studies will continue and more evidence will be revealed in due course. So, what I'm trying to say here now is that forgiveness is not simply, although in itself it's already that is enough, but it's not simply a nice concept or a spiritual idea, but there is hard empirical evidence, scientific or neuroscientific evidence to support the practice of forgiveness. So, in this way, I hope that we can all be encouraged to cultivate the quality of forgiveness, which is linked to compassion, as we learn to grow beyond the limited boundaries of the self. And in being boundless, we'll find this quality of forgiveness and compassion that's linked to it to be most useful, beneficial, and important. So now let's do some practice. Let's meditate together on compassionate forgiveness. And we begin by just sitting comfortably in a straight back chair, your back upright but free of tension, feet flat on the floor, shoulder width apart, eyes closed, hands on your lap. Take a few moments to settle into your breathing, into your body, just being fully present. And allow all tension to be released as you enter more deeply into this openness and spaciousness of the moment. Breathing in the sky, breathing out into the sky, allowing your heart, your whole being, to expand and melt into that openness, spaciousness like the sky. Now, within the luminosity of that spacious openness, call to mind one or two incidences where you've been hurt or harmed by someone, and that has caused some stress, perhaps anger, which you have held in your heart, a sense of unforgiveness. If you have not experienced something like that, you can imagine what it would be like to feel something like that. And just for a few moments, acknowledge the texture, the feeling of unforgiveness, of anger, of holding on to past hurts. It's not pleasant and it's not healthy. At the same time, we do not want to repress, to resist, to push it away. But we shine the light of awareness on it so that we can acknowledge its presence, be open to its presence in our heart, and allow our awareness to illuminate it, soften it. And as we continue to breathe, to allow it to dissolve and melt away. Considering that this deeply held anger or hurt is not good for us, causes us pain, sorrow, and it can result in unskillful actions and speech that in turn hurt the people we love most. So with compassion for ourselves and others, especially our loved ones, generate the wish to forgive, to let go, to release that hurt, to release the resentment, to forgive. To help us in this process, we can think of the person who has hurt us as a 3-year-old child, small little person, innocent, childlike, perhaps happy and bubbly, not knowing what it is to hurt or harm anyone. And perhaps as this 3-year-old child, the person who has hurt or harmed you may have been bullied or may have received hurt and harm from someone. And somehow that has resulted in some unskillful behaviors and states in this young person. And as this young person grows up, he or she ends up becoming unskillful in the way they relate to others. So seeing the cause and effect of pain and suffering, we can have a degree of compassion for them and thus forgiveness. Breathe in, breathe out, releasing any hurt and anger. Now in that same luminous space, call to mind this person again, but now as a 90-year-old person, frail, maybe bent, their hair has gone completely white, skin is wrinkled, frail and vulnerable. See his or her suffering. See how in the big scheme of things, we are all equal in growing old, falling sick, dying. Let some of these universal truths sink into our hearts to help us release our hold on pain, anger, resentment. Now breathe in and out. Allow the light of forgiveness to expand in your heart. And compassionately, in a friendly and gentle way, prepare to conclude this meditation. Rejoice in your efforts. Smile into your heart and open your eyes. Well done. Forgiveness is not easy, but essential. And together with compassion, forgiveness is a potent force for liberating the heart, releasing our fixations, and helping us to expand into boundless awareness, light and free. So thank you, dear friends. We finished day 2. See you tomorrow for day 3. Meanwhile, take care and namaskar.